may I invite our moderator, Mr. Sujeet Jain, Chief Legal Officer, UltraTech Cement, to please come on stage. Thank you, sir. Double clap for him for also dancing. Great, great. Okay, and now our panel members, Ms. Natasha Treasurywala, partner Desai and Diwanji. May I please request you to come on stage? Great. Taaliyan bajti rehni chahiye. These people are coming here to provide their nuggets of wisdom and thoughts. Next is Mr. Sandeep Chowdhury, SVP Group General Counsel, HCC Limited. Mr. Srivals Kumar, I think he's the most active person in today's event, and kudos to him. Great. Executive Vice President and Head Legal, Sunteck Realty Limited. And now, virtually, we'll have Mr. Rajendra Misra, Executive Vice President and General Counsel, the Indian Hotels Company Limited, joining us. Okay, with that, sir, the stage is yours.
Hi, good afternoon to all of you. I think it's a post-lunch session, but I assure you that we will try and create some debate and discussion which will be relevant to you now and relevant to you in times to come as well. All of us may need a strong coffee after this session to awaken us, I think, although spiritually. There are three concepts here which we are going to dwell into: the great resignation, the hybrid workplace, and the moonlighting. All are interconnected in some form or the other, or the other way to look at it, the one will lead to other subject. We may agree or we may disagree, but I think, like the French philosopher and writer Victor Hugo said, no force on earth can stop an idea whose time has come. We've seen how the digitization and digitalization has changed the business world. I believe that similarly, we are also seeing personal transformation in the form of these developments, because sometimes soul also needs awakening. I have been reflecting on this subject for last couple of weeks, and I believe this is the elephant in the room we need to talk about. Before we start the panel discussion, I put together 4 or 5 slides just to share with you what is happening on this subject. You must have seen them in the media. You must have seen them in the various news articles. I've just tried and collated them together just to give you a perspective, and so that we start this debate and discussion. Let me start with the caveat. These are not my personal views. Okay, I have just presented it as is, and as you will see that how we are able to relate and associate with few of them. This is the subject. Oh, you can't see the. Oh, okay, it's all right. Okay, don't to disturb everything. What I'm going to do is. I'm really sorry about that. I had told organizers that I will be presenting, so I'm really sorry about that. I'm sorry. Maybe this stage is not meant for presentation, but trust me, these are very interesting facts. And what we are going to do is, I assure you that we will be keeping it engaging, and we will be taking a lot more questions. So, in fact, before our closing time, just give me 20 minutes heads up, comparer, and we will stop. And if there is a questions, we will take those questions. And if there are no questions, I have few more in my kitty. Okay, I already have this. So, the first point, this is a Michael Page report, and I found this report very interesting. So, as I said, it is just about quick read. I have not changed anything. This is as is. 86% of the employees in India may resign in next 6 months. Okay. The second bullet, the report highlighted that this trend will continue in all markets, industries, and ages, regardless of seniority or age. So I will just pause for 30 seconds for you to just to go through this slide, and then I'll move to next. Like I said, this is not an analysis for me, but I wanted to let the facts stare at us. No, we are lawyers, right? Only when the facts stare at us, we start reflecting. Okay, can I move to next? Okay. So this is about, I think I have jumped. Sorry. Yeah. Interesting fact, isn't it? there is a growing disconnect between employer and employees around hybrid work, and there are 4 or 5 team members of mine in the room. I think they will relate to what I'm saying. While 93% of the employees in India felt they are productive at work, 91% of the leaders disagreed. Not on the productive and disproductive, but on the concept in general. And the last bullet, 91% of the employees would be motivated by the promise of socializing with co-workers and 92% by the prospect of rebuilding team bonds. Probably we need to do something different if you want to get, not I would say younger folks, almost everyone back to office. Can I move to next? Okay. This is about the great debate we have seen. It was covered by almost all newspapers, Business Standard, Economic Times, Financial Express, almost everything. So obviously there is no verdict here, and like I said, this is just an idea whose time has come. And we've seen the debate about the Wipro Research Premji, and the next one is interesting. There's nothing right or nothing wrong about this. What is important is to just reflect the trends which are evolving, reflect the thoughts which are evolving from the leaders and also in general. The last one is interesting, isn't it? That's true. I have, as I said, I put as is, so I will not comment on that. There was a Microsoft study also, and again, few interesting thoughts from that. The last one. This is very, very interesting. I found it very, very interesting. I haven't read the full report. I read few pages just to prepare myself for this discussion. But I love the first sentence. You know, the Great Awakening could be to India what the Great Resignation is to West. We are a spiritual country. We believe in the spirituality, and in some form, I believe there's a connection between. Sometimes the soul needs awakening. So, in my personal thought, in this is in a manner connected to that. And this the last one is for the leaders, I think. Very interesting. We need to watch out. Can you read it? Sorry. Okay, I'll read it for you. Okay, I can see from there. People are looking up to leaders who are inclusive, less hierarchical, someone who has open to people's entrepreneurial ideas. Okay, thank you very much. The discussion begins now. I can request my panel members to be back. You know, I thought, sorry, I've taken a little off-track route, but I thought it would make more sense for us to collectively look at this data and reflect on this and see the problem we are staring at. Okay, so without much ado, let me start with Natasha. Natasha, what's your overall view on the subject? In my view, law firm attrition is very high compared to in-house. How do you see this great resignation phenomena evolving in law firm? My connected question is, what about work-life balance in law firm, and what are the consequences of that for the Gen Z and millennials in particular?
Okay, thanks, Sujeet. I wish I could also use his line and say, these are not my thoughts. Attrition and what you said, people leaving from law firms is not a new thing at all, right? I mean, it has happened in the past and is going to continue to happen. What I think is that COVID really brought to the fore the work-life balance issue, which has been, spoken about so much in the last few years, the last year or so post-COVID. And I think what happened is that people have realized the importance of work-life balance because they have now been able to work from home. They have had that sort of taste of being able to be at home, do certain things at home, and also work at the same time. So, for example, I interviewed somebody just a few weeks ago. He was very clear. He came and said that I will work in the office only 2 days a week. The rest I want to work from home. Now, as a law firm, of course, we like, okay, but why? Because what is the issue? Why do you not want to? he was quite clear. He said, I learned martial arts during COVID and I want to continue it. And I won't get that chance if I'm going to commute 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. I want that flexibility to be able to do it. And at the same time, work from home. My work won't suffer, but I am very clear on this. And we said that, what if we want you to come 5 days a week? He said, no, sorry, then I'm very clear. And I think that is what has happened post-COVID, that people have become very clear that they want that work-life balance. And another example, just quickly, another very good associate of ours last year told us that, she has a young child. Once she's able to be at home to put the child to sleep at say 9 o'clock instead of being at work, because she's home, and then continue with calls at 10 o'clock or whatever from home. She can have that flexibility, which if you're at office, you are not going to be able to leave at 7 p.m, commute, get home and do this. So that flexibility is there. And she said, if you don't give me this flexibility, I'm sorry, but I have no choice. I've decided then I can't do this. I'll go someplace else.
Any, Natasha, any thought on this, the Great Resignation? So why do you think that there's so much of fuzz about it? Or is it that it was always there and the COVID is just a trigger?
Well, it was, if you're asking me for law firms, it was there. The reasons may have been slightly different because, salary, if you're going to be burned out, you might as well work at another place and be paid more. That's how people probably think, associates think. But now, like I said, with COVID, I think people have realized that maybe there is a balance. We can work from home also. We can work a hybrid model, which I'm sure we'll touch upon, on how but the hybrid model, I think, is how people want their work to continue, is what I'm seeing in lots of people who come to us, want to be a part of law firm, but also want that work-life balance.
And before I let you go, what about the law firm culture in relation to both these subjects, the Great Resignation? And
yeah, so of course,
because I see, like I said in my opening thoughts, this is more nuanced in law firm vis-a-vis in-house.
So we all know that law firm culture is not the best. Okay, we have clients who are always, they want everything yesterday. I mean,
majority in this room are responsible for that.
Yeah.
I didn't say that. He said that.
No. I tell you who said that. In fact, when we were having the conversation before this panel discussion, and Rajbir has, unfortunately, is not able to join us on this panel, but he had a very, very strong view, and I will echo his view while he's not there. He said that all this, I think it's Rajbir, that he said that we are all GCs responsible for that. So he had a very, very strong views about it. That we give a deadline, one day we want SHA, 2 days we want a diligence and all that stuff. And there were some examples which Natasha also shared. So maybe it's a note for all of us to take, and also to understand that in some form, maybe we could be responsible. Okay, let me on that note jump to Srivals. Srivals, what's your overall view on the subject, and in particular about the Great Resignation? Also, is this development only limited to millennial and Gen Z, or older generation is also affected by this?
I think I must say all the three topics, whether it's Great Resignation, it is moonlighting or hybrid work culture, or are interrelated, and they have seen the light in the last 2 years, courtesy the COVID pandemic. So to start with, I must say I came across a very good video on YouTube where a person gave a very good perspective about the generations, what has happened. Our fathers, I will say people who are aged around 80 plus today, when they worked, it was industrial revolution in place. At that time, it was a question of survival. So you were looking at food for the family. So their loyalty was that meri job nahi jani chahiye. They used to lick the boot, do everything required to save their job. So they were looking at getting the job and food for the family, survival. The next generation, when we came, it was about standard of living. And the first was industrial revolution. Second, it was the IT revolution, which gave us time to think about other things. It's about standard of living, getting a better car, getting a good house, good education for the kids. So that was the second time where if the employer is not good, they will look at options. Work-life balance started to think in majority of people's mind. The third is the today's generation who are the 20s and 30s, I will say, or even 18s, because now I see dropouts starting various startups. So I would say the third category is a different breed altogether. They are looking at us saying that I don't care what you're, because everything is done by my parents and my grandfathers are there. Today I'm looking at how to live life like what we see people abroad doing, not carried about making something for the kids, not to do savings for the kids' education. They all believe it will happen automatically. So I think first we need to understand why this is happening. These three revolutions were quite different. So that's one. Second, COVID triggered these things and everybody knew that majority of you were worked from home, and majority of us believe unless and until a certain job require physical presence, maybe like a brickwork in real estate or making a plan or a production at a plant, rest all can be done from home. Majority of our legal work can be done from different places, except maybe a due diligence or some very other things where you can't touch the papers or the volume. It's practical. So there's a second aspect. The last is moonlighting. And for that, I think moonlighting as a concept, one needs to look at an example wise. We all had moonlighting in our various lives, I will say. And if you look at it, for me, moonlighting has three aspects: practicality, ethical, and then legal. So if you look at practicality, we all know, especially in Bombay, all security guards do 2 shifts. 12 hours somewhere, 12 hours here. So you always had moonlighting in the Bombay scenario for guards I had seen. Second aspect is, when I say practicality, can the person do the second job? So you can expect a guard to do a commercial shift in the morning in a commercial office and sleep in a residential society home in the night because there is no stress. You can't expect that from a driver. He can't expect 24 hours driving by a driver. So moonlighting has its concept depending on the function. So that's the second aspect. And the third comes the legal aspect, where the conflict of non-compete, ethical, other aspects come. And on that, then you have the issue of, the government, or I will say the labor codes, the standing orders, the current legislation, certain way prevent that to happen, or it's in the contract of employment. So from a perspective of moonlighting, it is because of opportunities that came. So I think moonlighting was very, very maybe minute. If I could look back, maybe in the last 25 years plus of my career, less than 1% of a staff anywhere would have been doing moonlighting. The opportunity arose because, especially in a bay like Bombay, I think commuting 4 hours was saved. Offices were able to save at least 50% of their rental cost because of premium location. So it's an opportunity win-win for both. But there are boundaries to be drawn around that, because a lot of issues can happen. The efficiency and productivity of the people may be impacted with the moonlighting. There will be issue of data leakages. There will be issues, I think it goes of burnout of the employee, whether he can do that job or not. So moonlight, if you look at it, why it's called moonlighting, it is because you are doing majority major work and a minor smaller work. Time will come when you will go to daylighting from moonlighting. They will keep on swapping the jobs. So these two are the major ones. And lastly, coming to great resignations, I think the third concept and the surveys you shared, there is one more reason surveyed of PwC, where the numbers are starking than the US and European figures. If the Europe said 40% people don't want to work, India, I'd say 60% people don't want to work from office. And it was in 3 brackets. People who are senior want to still look at, yes, now I believe I have a life, they are still saying. But the number of proportion of people in the 93% of below 30 people said they don't want office job. Like an example given by Natasha, they think they can, and if an option given to me, if my daughter comes back from school, I would like to take a 10 minutes break and meet her, work from home, rather than be in office and just do a phone call or a WhatsApp call. I think emotional bonding, value for life came a lot of issues during this period. So I think the conceptual is, it's more humane rather than anything about practicality. So I think it was that aspect. From a perspective of options and problems, I think a lot of problems can be done, but you have to think whether you want an employee to just sit in office from 10 to 6, or you want a productive employment, working from home, working for 4 good hours, but giving you a product. So I think that is the difference, mindset change, startup culture. If you today look at it, I want to give 2 more examples on this. I used to work for a media company for a long time, and Sujeet will correct me if I'm wrong. One of the most important factors which I saw middle and lower jobs not leaving was 1 annual vacation for 10 years, 10 days to abroad location. Every media company used to take its staff for 7 to 10 days abroad. And I used to see the lower people never used to leave the job because that option is not there anywhere else. The second example, I worked in Tata Group of companies. In Tata's, one of the most important thing is, if you don't perform, they don't sack you. They think you are not maybe responsible to fit into this sector, they shift you to another sector. Even if you have a 1 rating on goals and personal effectiveness, they send you to another group company. And I have seen success stories, guys failing here and being successful in other industries. So I think it's an approach of a corporate that will make the whole difference. And that starts from leaders. And I think that's where role comes to all of us in the room. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. I think my ex-colleagues from media tells me that that's no more the trend now, unfortunately. We will need more time. We started late, but I'll try and move as quickly as I can. Okay, Sandeep, let me get you to that. And while you can talk about the subject in general, I have a very specific question on the moonlighting. Do you think it is legally enforceable? So, do you think is there any provision in the labor law, or do you think the employment contracts, if let's say we are leaders and our bosses ask us to structure a contract in a manner, how do you think we should tackle this?
So Sujeet, before answering your question, I think what is important to understand is, there's this buzz about moonlighting, which is there in last 3-4 months. And we've seen a lot of pros and cons of different company executives either taking a decision for it, or there are certain companies which is also taking a decision against it. And I think law firms in last 3-4 months, whether it's a new gen company or it's IT or ITs, everyone's rushing to the labor experts in terms of how to, put more or how to have more concrete contracts or employment contracts, how to establish their policies and procedures in place in order to avoid moonlighting. Because again, there's a lot of confidentiality aspect which is built into it. And also, as Srivals rightly stated, I think companies at this point of time are more they have their question mark at the back of their mind that moonlighting shouldn't transpire into daylighting, right? Now, coming directly to your question and to answer that, it all depends upon the employment contract, correct? Because if you really want to go and challenge something before the court of law, it's a bi-party agreement that you've entered into between the employer and the employee. And whether moonlighting or basically dual employment without letting your employer know about it, whether it's a part of that contract or not, and how tightly it's been captured in the contract is very important. Secondly, your company policies and procedures are very important in this aspect, because being an employee of your company, you cannot just override the policies and procedures. So if your policy speaks specifically about a bar to dual employment, or you cannot sort of engage, whether it's your competitor or a third party during the tenure of your employment, so you have to be a whole-time employee of that company, you're bound by that, right? So I think at this point of time, we are still in some sort of a gray area. It's fully not black and white, but to me, in order to enforce that, it has to be driven by the employment contract. And secondly, also the policies and procedures of the organization would play an important role. I mean, these are the two things which you can harp on in order to sort of stop an employee to sort of do moonlighting for any other organization or to work for any other organization.
Just to add one line, every contract of employment in India is a standard template, and it clearly provides you can't do anything. The question would be, you can take action and terminate, but whether you can seek damages in a court of law and enforce, that's a different proposition. Various judgments clearly say that Section 27 restraint, it is valid during the term of the employment. You can't restrict it beyond that. That's very clear. So I think it's a question of whether an action like this will even further trigger great resignations across your board. I think as an interconnected question, that would be the trigger. If you start taking action against few employees, you will see an en masse if the faith is not.
No, you're right. I think you're right, Srivals. I think it is not about the first part of the question. The reason I raised was, because we are at the end of the lawyers also. That's our bread and butter. And therefore, it's important for us to know that if we have to advise our management, then how we deal with it. So my personal opinion is, yes, you will need a very tight provision in a contract if you need to enforce it. And secondly, even a tight provision in the contract, if you go to the court, the facts of every case will actually determine. So, let's say if it has to get adjudicated and some employee, wants to take employer to court, and so it will all depend on that. In my view, it's still not a black and white answer, even if there is a provision in the contract. Okay. So let me get Sormistha in picture, and before I know Rajendra is there digitally available. Your thoughts on the subject, Sormistha?
So on moonlighting, every organization has faced this. This is not a COVID phenomena. Before that, also in the 25 years I've worked, there are employees who will walk up and if they understand that as per the policies there is an issue, they'll come and explain exactly what I want to do. So I have had employees who are working, but they also want to work in their passion area of IT coding, which is not connected with what work they are doing. If they are doing procurement, it has got no connection with the code they want to develop and then they want to sell. Or they are helping their friends out. They have all set up a startup, but they have to still eat the bread and butter. So they have joined in the finance team or whatever was their basic qualification, but they have a passion to, set up something. They already have a startup going on. So there are a lot of ways, I agree. Contracts will always be there. We'll simply say dual employment is not possible. There are employees whose families have family business. They are already on the board or something like that, as a shareholder and a director, they were there. But for whatever reason, they walk out from that family business, but they continue to hold that certain positions because of that. They are working in another organization as a salaried employee in big organizations. And they come and say that, okay, I'm still on that board of my family business, which has no connection. So there's no conflict. I think the basic idea, even the courts will ask all these, as you correctly said, the facts. How much is it conflict? If it is a conflict, you are doing procurement here and you go and do procurement in the evening, till 4 o'clock, and then you're doing procurement for the same product with somebody, same vendors and all, then obviously it's a conflict. Then it is, you can say moonlighting and it's a big conglomerate, nothing happens to you, but I'm helping out a friend and in the process I earn few lakhs more. So it all depends what proof also we have. So getting the proof is also very difficult because what data they would have been using. So I think all of this I have seen over the years, over the decades. People are generally, it is not COVID, they are anyways very creative in how they manage. Or it has come up now because a big chunk was found in an organization and it came out. You will typically find 2 people, 3 people, and which I think all GCs here or every legal person with experience will say they have found 2 or 3. It is just in hundreds now it has come out. So that's the fact. That is why the debate is happening. It all depends on the industry also. What type of industry, so which you correctly put out. Now on the hybrid model, I didn't want to let go of this discussion. 25 years ago, I did hybrid model work, in law firms when there were no laptops, desktop computer, files used to come to my home and files used to go when I was in a law firm and court practice. And 10 years down the line, also in the MNC world, I got the hybrid model, 10 minutes walking distance office. You have to have your reason why you are asking for the hybrid model. And I got all my promotions. There was no problem. I lived that. Today, post-COVID, I am in a hybrid model. My office is another state. I live out of another state in this country. And I am following a hybrid model. I have my team members whom I encourage to manage everything because one has to look at the work. So 25 years ago also I got hybrid model. 10 years ago also I got. Currently also I have a hybrid model for myself and I am a leader. And I have the CEO and the CFO and I'm at the corporate level at the group company, parent company level. So if you really ask me, COVID has only highlighted things. Whether you call it great resignation and all, because we have now probably time and the data analysis is also happening now. During our time, data analysis didn't happen and probably our profession also was not so open about a lot of things. As technology has changed, the highlights of how we live our lives have changed. So I completely agree with Srivals that, it's the era which is changing and that is precisely what is causing these discussions. It was always there, probably not in the public eye. So great resignations will happen because as all of us know, if it doesn't meet our lifestyle and our requirement on a personal footing, then it will affect the Great Resignation. So whichever way you look at it, everything has a social norm and the highlight to it. What is the era, why it is happening, that's the only analysis, and the data collection, and also the public media, how it throws up. So all of these were present. It's just the discussion forums are changing now.
I think like in the first two sessions on ethics and ESG, the whole concept of a hybrid culture would succeed if there is an intent from the top management or promoters. If there is no intent, it will not happen, because still majority of Indian promoters still want a physical person sitting in the office.
Yeah, I am in an Indian promoter organization working with
So
the
the intent
promoters. So I'm
change at
just
top.
saying that.
Okay, I want to
changing
get
the
in
status
Rajendra.
quo,
He's
yeah.
he's wait. Rajendra, you still there? Is he connected?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi Rajendra, how are you? Good to see you, and thanks very much for joining us digitally.
Thank you so much and apologies, but thank you for accommodating.
No, pleasure. So, your overall thoughts on the subject, and maybe a few quick words on the moonlighting as well.
So first of all, I think to Legal Era and to the panel, congratulations on a fabulous subject, very topical issue that has been raised today. And my own views on this subject are as follows. See, attrition has always been there. In-house, law firms, attrition has always been there. And we have been increasingly seeing movement across, from the law firms to in-house, sometimes from in-house into law firms as well. But what has happened is that COVID has really brought this issue to the fore. And probably the concept of Great Resignation, which has come about from the Western world, I think it's also hit India, as the reports do show, and as we all have seen several movements happening. And to me, it's more of a great reshuffle. I was reading somewhere that, rather than a great resignation, in India it is more as a great reshuffle, right? Which is happening. And you referred to some reports, and I was reading up. I think there is a report which is from Walters Kluwer, which says that about 70% odd of the corporate lawyers, they are either very or between very to somewhat likely to switch to a new employer. There's a PwC survey which says that about 34% are very likely to switch to a new employer. Now that is really something to think about, right? That is the great reshuffle or the great resignation that is happening. So it's very much there. It's something which has been brought to the fore and aggravated by COVID, because I think COVID made all of us realize that some things can go very wrong, and you probably do not get the time to even adjust to it. So what are really the priorities in life? And that is when I think people across the world began thinking about work-life priority, work-life balance, and several other things that brought to fore this great resignation, which we are seeing across the world and across the country as well. But one more angle to that also is this generational issue. Millennials and the Gen Z, what are their priorities? What are the characteristics of the millennials and the Gen Z? I think Srivals was mentioning about the various generations and what was the priority. But millennials and Gen Z have certain priorities which the corporates and the law firms will have to take into account while tackling this whole issue about the great resignation or the great reshuffle. It is no longer just about having a job. It is no longer about having an income, a stable income, or things like those. I think to these generations, it's very important as to how they prioritize what part of their life goes into work and rest of it goes into their own interests, their family, their circle of friends, etc. And whether a balance is being maintained between these two aspects or not. Aspects like ESG, sustainability, is something which is very important to the generations today, whether you talk of the Gen Z or even the millennials. And these are the kind of things, whether they are getting appreciated in work, what kind of freedom do they have, what kind of challenging assignments they are getting. It's no longer about a hierarchical setup, but giving freedom to people to operate. And I think all of that is something which is of importance to the millennials and the Gen Z. And that I feel is also a very important factor contributing towards this great reshuffle that we are seeing, this great movement. And therein also lies the answer of how the companies and the law firms can actually tackle this whole concept. Now coming to moonlighting, my own views on the subject are as follows again here. See, as far as moonlighting is concerned, legally, we will be led by the contract and the standing orders of the organization. That is a very, very legal answer. But personally, if you ask me, and ethically, if you ask me, I don't think you can have two legs in two different boats. It goes against the concept of moonlighting, goes against the whole concept of full-time employment. And if one is talking about a full-time employment, moonlighting has no scope over there, because there are issues of confidentiality, there are issues of data privacy, and so on and so forth. So therefore, to me, it is not a concept which appeals, whether you look at it legally or whether you look at it ethically, morally, etc., etc. I do understand that certain circumstances may have happened, especially during the COVID, which may have resulted in something like this sunset. But to my mind, it is neither legally okay nor ethically or morally okay.
Okay, I think I just got a note from the comparer because we need to wrap up in 10 minutes. We're expecting some more dignitaries here. Anyway, so what I want to do is I want to quickly take few questions also. I think whenever they walk in, we will wind up. Okay, so. Before, thanks a lot, Rajendra, for that thought actually. If you can, I just had one burning question for you. If you can shortly answer that for me, because you have a lot of employees internationally as well. Taj has employees across the. So do you see this different in the other part of the world vis-a-vis India?
No, not really.
Not really. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Now, each of you can take 1 minute or 2 minutes. What difference? We've spoken about the concept, we've spoken about the problem, we've spoken about the trend and the development. So obviously one thing is very clear, this is a reality, it's not a bluff or it's not a bubble, right? And obviously the magnitude is much more because of COVID, and obviously there are always triggers in life. So this is the biggest trigger I think our generation would have ever seen in life. What do you think at the work culture or work front differently should be done? Whether it's a Gen Z or millennials, what can you do? To people will make choice, people will move on, but what can you do? Let me start with Natasha, and just take a minute. I'm sorry, not more than that.
Okay, sure. I actually wanted to say a couple of things. Sormistha, I think, okay, I'll be very quick. I think you're very lucky with what you had 20 years ago. I don't think all of us were that lucky or are that lucky, to be honest. I don't know if without Zoom and all, we would have even been able to do what we did in the pandemic, to be honest. What can we do as a law firm? I can tell you that I think hybrid work model, having people giving people flexibility is extremely important. People are asking for it. That even if it's 1 day a week where you don't get to come in, you work from home, that flexibility is something that's very important. Another thing that's very important these days, and rebuilding, because these are all old things, there's nothing new, is training and mentorship, which I think somewhere maybe along the way, may have gotten lost because law firms are becoming bigger and, you just keep getting more and more recruits. But training, mentorship is something that's important because it gets somebody to stick to the organization. And the most important is community building. The more you build a community, whether it is, offsites, whether it is dinners, lunches, things like that, engagement, to have a sense of community. If you don't have a sense of community and you're just one of many, you're not going to get someone to stick with you for more than a year or two, regardless of COVID or not. It's something that we all need to start thinking about, not just as law firms, but probably also, in-house, everyone really.
Sandeep, quick thought.
I think I tend to agree with Natasha. A couple of things, Sujeet, is I think culture of the organization plays a very important role, right? Because people, every day someone coming to work should be coming in a happy face. So what culture of the organization, and again, it's very easy to say culture of the organization. It's basically we people who build the culture because we are coming from different sources or different industries. Second is, again, on what is the value add that you're making to the member? For a particular team member of yours and as an HOD, if she wants to or he wants to go to a particular level, say 2 years or 3 years down the line, what's the value add that you're giving to him or her? And what's the input that she is getting or he is getting from you? And to be very honest with you, I think this work-life balance and all pre-COVID or even 4-5 years back, I think it was more quote unquote, it was jargon to certain companies. I think it's only the MNCs and very few sort of top companies and all who really had those work-life balance. It has more come into the forefront post-COVID or during the COVID period. And I think these days, most of the, be it a multinational or Indian companies and all, they are now focusing on work-life because they've seen that, again, compared to Gen Z employees and all, their thought process is very clear. Either this is my way or your way.
Srivals?
I will say 3 summary points. First, let's accept the tsunami has come. We have to live with it. That's the first point. Second point, every corporate need to assess what kind of work an individual is doing, whether it's a skill-based or it's an intellectual-based thing or it's an unskilled routine activity. Can then that be from home environment, provided the conducive environment is there? For a call center, you require some no-noise space. So that is the second aspect. And from a legal perspective, I think things have come where we will not look at an 8-hour employment, but a productivity-related employment contracts where you do a contractual employee with someone, like what you do with a law firm, with a billable hour, or it's going to be a lump sum contract. Same with an employee, you have to start looking what you want. So as I said, I have a team out here. In the break, we are working. So it doesn't mean whether you want to meet in office. If you're meeting in evening for a coffee, tea or drinks, you can still have that bonding and take it forward. So I think this is a change evolution. It will take some time to settle. And you will see various models and every company will look at a different model to adapt to it.
Sormistha, quickly.
So I agree that I got very lucky in having visionaries as my colleagues and my bosses. This is exactly what has enabled me to reach where I have. And when the COVID situation happened, it was not a reaction. It was already an understood situation for which the team was prepared. Because at least the leader was not surprised because has lived that life because some seniors had done. I think that's exactly the message is that COVID has triggered the change faster, but there were people who understood this concept, who observed it, and in every organization, whether it was a law firm, a small law firm, whether it was an MNC or today in a promoter driven, that is the recognition for the flexibility we have to understand. The type of work, what you can do, how you can enable that, and also accept that is the person to whom you are giving that opportunity is using it or not. So it is a correct manner. It is not given to everybody. I got it probably because I could deliver it. So when I go back into my 20 years back persona, I try to understand when I give that opportunity to somebody or a team, that are they also demonstrating or at least will be able to demonstrate the benefit to the organization. So that is what I'm saying, that yes, I was lucky in meeting such persons who were in their 40s and 50s in those days, who gave that opportunity to juniors in a law firm. I agree, burnout happened, but then the fact is that are we looking at it 10 years future or are we wanting to stay today and react to COVID? So that's the question we all have to think.
In my personal opinion, I have been, I've moved, sectors, from media to telecom to IT, and now in cement. And I'm fortunate in being able to build teams across sectors. My personal take on this is you need to be concerned about the development of your team members, bottom line. Okay. And that authenticity must come across when you engage with your people. They see through it. Let me tell you, they are way, way smarter than, as a leader, as a boss, I think. So you need to see through that. They will see through that, right? So therefore, you need to be genuinely concerned about their development and growth and progress. In my personal opinion, there can be other reasons, but as long as you are bothered and concerned about that, even if you want to get work done, even if you want to push to get the work done, all of us have a pressure and all of us need to get pushed, but they need to see that push is genuine and not the push as a culture. Right? That's my take on that. I think so any couple of questions we can quickly take. Any questions? Hi, Anand. Hi. Yeah. Rajendra, okay, go ahead, Rajendra. You can have a quick 1 minute thought, please.
Sorry?
Go ahead, Rajendra. You wanted to say something?
No. See, what I wanted in answer to the question was, I think the most important issue here is empathetic leadership. I think organizations and leaders have to be empathetic, to understand and to empathize with their workforce, with the millennials and with the Gen Z. I think that is the most important. I think you also alluded to it to say that, understand them, give them mentorship, give them the opportunity. That is one. Second is an optimal work-life balance is something which is extremely, extremely important. For the millennials, for the Gen Z, even, I dare say, even for the other generations as well today. COVID has led to that situation. Of course, hybrid working would be a solution, but that would depend upon industry, that would depend upon circumstances.
That's so true.
A higher cause, which is sustainability, etc., that is something which will appeal to the millennial and to the Gen Z. And organizations today are gravitating towards that, right? To motivate the workforce, to keep them engaged.
No, in fact, Rajendra, when I was doing this research and I was doing some reading. So one of the big challenges that has come up is now in a lot of organizations, there are 5 to 6 generations working together. So you see, I can take a classic example of my organization, UltraTech, and there are 5-6 generations actually working together. So that is also throwing a different kind of challenge. Okay, anyone want to ask a quick question? Sorry. Oh, is Cyril going to be online? Okay, thank you very much. I think Anand is here and Cyril is online. So all of us are eager to hear them. Back to you. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
Sujeet,
to all my panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sujeet, for such a wonderful moderation, such a wonderful insight, and to all the panel members.